Hey family, if somehow you've landed here first, please note the first episode in the FuckBoy files begun with Shapeshifter, which is episode 3, season 6. Otherwise, let's get started. This podcast is rated E for explicit.
I'm not looking to settle down. We can hang out, we can do our thing, but I'm not trying to go exclusive.
I played priest to a fuckboy with many tales to tell.
But obviously, you can tell someone's catching feelings for you. Mm-hmm. But you're also like, well, I like you.
And it seems,
but I don't know if I like you enough to where I can just give up what I'm doing.
His confessions,
that's where the fuckboy tendencies start coming in at.
Opened the gates of hell.
It's a dirty game. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is, because feelings don't get spared if you're out here.
Tales of his schemes poured like gasoline into the dens we dwell.
If each of these persons are getting their needs met, what's the danger or problem here?
The board has assembled with fire in their eyes to dismantle the character of all fuckboys and bring them down to size.
I know that you're not getting it regularly. I know you're not, because if you were constantly getting all this sex, you wouldn't have the opportunity to pull multiple women. I also don't think it's a problem if your needs are being met and there is a conversation about it. You don't know. You might have met me. I just got out of a relationship, and you know what? All I really want is a fuck buddy.
If you are a fuckboy, you might want to read these files, or at least take a listen to what has been realized.
Seducing her and tricking her is the fun part. That's too much work, in my opinion.
If you feel like you're sweating, you might want to check these dials.
So you don't have what it takes to be a fuckboy?
No, I don't. I don't have what it takes to not be myself.
Because the heat that you're getting is not from these Georgia skies.
This is what I want to do. This is what I'm willing to explore. You want to ride with me on that?
I really have a hard time putting him squarely in the fuckboy box. I feel like he's either on the way out of it. There's just way too much carry in what he's saying.
Respectfully, I think it's therapy that's needed in him.
You met me in the midst of many things. Shedding skin, sprout wings, looking at life as a spiritual being through a human lens, having conversations with God about so many things. This show is your invitation. The poet God is the conversation. So if you've listened to the previous episode which kicked off this series, you know we've been having one hell of a conversation. What this episode adds to the mix is a bag of a whole lot of tricks. How does a fuckboy get his fix? Capitalizing on weaknesses, as you'll see, is a key tactic to pursuing the target successfully. We began this conversation questioning what change may look like on any given day when your nature has been to see women as prey.
There are deep-rooted things in regards to this that in order to be in the sort of relationships that he's interested in, that he has to stop and reflect on himself. Like, hey, what brought me here? Why am I still here? What is the disconnect of what kept me in that space to what is it that I'm looking for? And what are the steps that I have to do to get there? Because you can want it for sure, but you have to put it in practice.
Right.
Right. And if you don't understand what that practice looks like, like we've been saying, you're going to revert back to what you've been doing because it's easy. You've had practice at that. You at this point, you low-key become a pro at it, right? So that's where I'm like, there needs to be some sort of therapy to recognize, like, what brought you here? You know, who, and I say it and it's funny, but it's not funny, but who hurt you to get to the point where you are?
Well, he seems to feel like it's a respectable amount of time, say, if they waited a week or two to have sex with him. But if they automatically gave it to him day one, then he's kind of like, I'll keep your number, but I don't know if I want you in the rotation. But it's because he knows that a woman that will have sex with him, like, immediately is using him for his body. And that means that he's not important. She can find another. You know what I mean? So he wants someone that he feels will value him after hanging out with him for a week or two, to value him in, like, oh, I know he's a good guy. I know he's intelligent and talented and a gentleman and all these things, you know. So what you're really wanting is the validation from them and not necessarily the sex, because you could have gotten the sex day one and you probably took the sex, but then you don't continue to want that. You know, you want the one that you have to chase for 2 weeks exactly, you know, no more, because he's not willing to wait for her to be comfortable with him.
That's too much work.
That's too much work. That's too much time. That's too much effort. That's too much honesty. That's too much sharing and caring and all that kind of stuff that he doesn't want. Plus, if he spends a lot of time with her, he will get exposed because her friends are going to want to meet him, right, and her family's going to want to meet him, and they're going to be like, oh no, this is not the one for you.
It's too much in-depth conversation, because there was even a point where he said, the conversation is different. I'm not going to have deep conversations with you.
Right.
So to take that time and explore you truly and have you explore me, I don't want to do that.
He wants a surface level deep.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I think when we're talking about him wanting to have the troubles and stuff, we're thinking of healthy relationships. So he's not in his mind, he's not going to be vulnerable at all, because that's not him. So he is thinking about a relationship in his context of what that is. We are thinking of it in a healthy, oh, you're vulnerable, you're doing all this. That's not his thought process.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Because what he said about the sex thing was that he wanted them to see value in him, you know, but he didn't want them to immediately go after him, because that means they don't have any value, you know? And I'm like, so you want to trick her into seeing some value, so you can have sex with her, so you can get that rush of, she thinks I'm amazing, that's why she gave it to me, as opposed to, she's just horny. You know what I mean? There's a definite distinction. He's like, I don't want her to be just horny. I want her to want me. You know, I want her to desire me, be excited about me, tell her friends about me, you know, and all of that.
And I don't want her to play me like I want to play her.
Exactly.
So that brings up another point about power dynamics, right? Because I'm still struggling with this conversation. You know, we're doing a lot of talking about quoting from, you know, just talking about that last episode. But I have real big questions about fuckboys, because I've always considered a few of my uncles to be them, right? Ever since I was a little kid, I never understood the power dynamic that was at play here. And we touched on it a little bit in the episode, Past the Black Penis. Y'all need to go back to season 3. But really it was about Black men using that sexuality to get what they want out of women, right?
Yeah.
I remember watching my uncles with these women, and he would live with them, or they would live with them. The women would give them money, would pay all their bills, and all my uncles would do was sit at home watching TV all day.
Yeah.
Doing nothing. That was what shaped my definition of what a true fuckboy was.
Right.
It wasn't any of the emotional stuff. It was more of like, you really do not care about these people, and you expect for them to give you everything and still keep doing it, to the point where, even just like you're saying, their friends are talking, oh my God, he's so wonderful, right? But really, is he though? Is he though? And it's really kind of a way of pulling the wool over somebody's eyes and having it stay there, right? And so I've never really understood that, and I'm hoping that y'all can maybe help me understand how this is still a thing.
I think that when we look at the core of it, people that are fuck boys or fuck girls or however you want to do it, these are people that are manipulative. And the only way that you can thrive in it is by, quote unquote, picking your victims. You have to choose them wisely.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't do this with everyone. There are going to be people that are very self-aware or very self-conscious of themselves to say, I'm not going to deal with this. This is not enough. This is, if there was a bar for bare minimum, you're under that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put up with it. Right. So they know not to go after those people, and they learn it quick. Right. They
like I
learn,
said, women his own age. At some point, you're going to have to keep going younger and younger and younger.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, it's like when younger women see an older man coming at them, they're going to think one of two things. I'm going to use him
for sure
because he's obviously trying to use me. You know, or like maybe she's looking for a daddy and she sees you as that, you know? So either way, you're going to end up being that sugar daddy again.
So I differ a little bit. It could also be women who have low self-esteem.
True.
At the same age level, who it's easy for him to manipulate those people because the need of what they're looking for, he's presenting that to them.
Right.
So there is some deficit for them that he's quote unquote meeting in their eyes.
Right.
I think you mentioned that earlier too, that it was about self-esteem.
For sure.
So it's like, okay, you're pulling these 8 women, but I want to see the caliber. I want to see what they look like. I want to see, you know, so are they baddies or not? You know,
you mentioned earlier about wanting to know the dynamic about their race and stuff. And I'm wondering if that could be part of the issue as well.
No, but I agree.
The way you answer that question.
I wholeheartedly agree. I do think that there's a certain demographics that play into it, right? Their age range, their racial background, potentially even their education, where they grew up, right? I think all of those things play a part in this situation of, you know, what the group of people is that.
And I would say what kind of porn they're watching.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
well, you know, porn is very unhelpful because it gives expectations of what reality cannot deliver. Okay. So let's be real about that, because a typical porn is like 30 minutes long, and most of these people cannot even go that, because you got to think of like the guy is having sex for several hours. So you can get like 30 minutes of a porn. You know, most men don't have that kind of stamina.
Yeah.
Or Viagra.
But I even wonder, so I even wonder, cause you brought up about your uncles, and I think that what's also kind of crazy is that, you know, notice how you were saying it was kind of accepting, like it was okay. Your uncles were able to do that. But let's put that perspective on a woman. If a woman does that, she is like looked down upon. She is frowned upon by being able to use her body to get what it is that she wants. Right.
And
right.
You see my confusion. My whole life, I've been wondering about this.
Yeah.
So
but the thing is that most of the time, because I don't know with my uncles, you know, they have children. They have multiple children, and they are not invested in multiple children, because you just can't be if they're in different households.
Believe it or not, that's one thing they didn't do. I'm actually surprised.
Have multiple children? Oh, there you go. All right.
In different households. So only one of them did that.
So what you were talking about with your uncles, I was thinking, and especially the way you described it, I was thinking, I said they were all kept men. So is that whole term, because that's another term that I've heard kind of thrown about on both sides, people who kind of want to find somebody to take care of them in a way that they don't have to worry about, and just like you described.
But see, the thing is that they can have that. If they wanted that dynamic, they can have it. The thing is that they realize that there's no power in that for them. If you are being taken care of, that means you've got somebody else paying the bills. That means they choose what bills to be paid. Mm-hmm. You want Hulu, they don't want Hulu, then sucks for you, dude. You know? So it's that dynamic. Like, he would never put himself in that position where a woman controlled what he could and couldn't do. You know, so he doesn't want to be taken care of in that aspect, you know? I don't think. But maybe he really does. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pointing this out because my impression of what a fuckboy is my whole life has been about people who just simply don't care about the people and take advantage of them, right? So as I'm listening to this episode, I'm like, I'm relating to this as being a fuckboy. I mean, on those terms, because I had to reevaluate what my thoughts were about what that really looks like. Oh yeah, he's a fuckboy, at least tendencies, right? But he doesn't touch on what I experienced growing up and watching, right? Because that to me was truly diabolical to me. Is in not only that though, but having multiple women in this situation.
He prides himself on his nice guy status. So he's trying to do whatever he can to still remain the nice guy, at least on paper. So if he really was living rent free in someone else's house, then you can easily see that, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's not Mr. Nice Guy. He's something else.
No, for sure. I think he is trying to retain a certain sort of, he wants his paper to look good, right?
Yes.
So
Gotcha.
yes,
That's a good point.
Yes.
he does want to be this nice guy. He wants to come off as this educated man that makes a good amount of money. There are these things that he's like, this is me. And that's what he wants to portray. So he's, in your mindset of what it is, he wouldn't fall in that line because he doesn't want to look that way, right? He's using that in his means of being a fuckboy. He's using that as his card to get women to be more comfortable and let down their guard with him because he's not He's not a hobo sapien where he's trying to bounce and find a house. Yeah, a homosexual.
Homosexual, yes.
He's not trying to find a house. He's like, I have these things, but he's still working for whatever it is he wants. Whatever is going to work for his ego is what he's going for.
Along the lines of what you were saying, I was thinking, so somebody who listened to the episode had told me about a situation, and I'm going to try to give the dynamics to kind of keep some distance from the people involved. But this was a scenario. This young lady met this guy in a work setting, right? The young lady was a contractor, so she wasn't somebody who would have been in the building every day. But she met this guy, and whatever exchange they had, they exchanged numbers and so forth. And the young lady expressed interest in the young man. And his response to her was, if you want attention from me, you gotta let me hold something. And
Hold what?
money.
I understand that real quick.
Are you not from the hood?
I understand that real quick. She said, hold what?
Let's be specific. All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, when I heard that, when the person who was relating the story to me got to that part, I was like, are you kidding me? For real?
That's great.
So anyway, the next part of it, she let him hold $500.
Oh, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Uh-huh.
It was a young lady.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. That's not the demographic. I would have thought.
500 though.
Yeah. Why did you give 500?
Well, I do think it's a significant amount of money. I do also think that I think it's a little bit tougher sometimes also when you work in the same space as them because people can make assumptions on additional things that you may have not provided. So they may know your title, knowing a range that you may make and be able to assume and push the limits on what they would request. Because imagine if you met somebody outside and they didn't know what you did for work and they were like, let me hold something. They may only come in at $50. Yeah. But if they're like, oh, you're a VP of X, Y, and Z? No, let me hold $2,000. My car is broke.
You know what has been surprising?
I just want to know what she's getting.
That's what
for $500.
I need to know the rest of this story.
Well, so let me correct y'all on that. The contractor, the lady, she wasn't making nowhere near what the guy was making. The guy was making probably 3 times what she was making. But
I
he
wanna know
said
what
to
he's
her,
promising.
I need you to let me hold something. And she, despite the fact that her salary is down here compared to his, she gave him she let him hold $500, right? The reason why this story came to light was because, after some time had passed, I guess the young lady was, in whatever situation she was in, she needed that money. So she said to him, I'm going to need you to give me my $500 back. And he said to her, no. I told you, if you wanted attention from me, you need to let me hold something. So I'm not, as far as I'm concerned.
Leaving out a big chunk of the conversation, I'm sure.
So that's how it related to me. And so it was this whole question is like, I listened to your FuckBoy episode, and this person here is even more of a fuckboy than the person that you interviewed.
Yeah.
And
but that's the kind of stuff that I grew up around a lot, because there was a lot of money exchanging hands that was only going one way.
Yeah, but the thing is that he's obviously lying about the dynamics of that situation, because she obviously saw that as a loan and not a gift, because she came around asking for the money back. If he was really pulling and he was a fuckboy, she wouldn't have even expected anything back. She would have been like, just your presence alone.
Yeah, but
Just to see you happy.
He still manipulated the situation.
Yes, he did. Right.
And that's true fuckboyism.
What he's saying, what he failed to mention, is that he probably gave her a sob story, tears and all, about how his car won't start. He needs it to get to work and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you poor thing, let me help you out. Or
I
whatever.
feel like you're giving him way too much credit. I feel like he said, you want me to sleep with you?
You got to pay to play.
You're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Who told you the story?
Well, that's why we don't have the details. I want names. We do want to know.
I'll tell you.
No, but I'm just laughing because it was like so severe. I need to know.
He's asking about whose perspective.
Whose perspective are we getting?
From the guy's perspective.
Well, he's trying to say,
that's a different thing.
He's trying to
from the
say,
woman's perspective.
but he's trying to say, I'm a nice guy because I'm not using these women for money like that.
so the person, the perspective that I saw was somebody that the young lady hit up who has a higher position in the office. She was soliciting that lady's help to help her talk to him to get her money back. So she brought me on and she said, look at this bullshit, is what she was venting to me about. She said, look at this fuck. So that's how I saw it.
So I'll play devil's advocate again. He told her what the offer was. She could have declined or accepted.
She
decided to accept the offer.
She wanted a refund.
She said this was not. She said I got 14 days. I need this money.
The fine print said no refund.
No, but no, I feel like that's the point right there. That's the vibe right there, that she wanted a refund.
The reason I was asking the question is I wanted to know if she's the one. So if you're hearing it from the person who this lady had reached out to for help, so we assume again the lady's perspective, he might have a point where it's like, hey, like, you got the attention, you don't get a refund.
No, for real though. Maybe he was like, let me hold something. And she was like thinking, oh, I should hold his penis.
Oh,
and then like,
yeah. Okay, in that case, she got finessed.
Okay, so
she got
no. I think that's a good point, because just like some people in this room may not know what that means, right?
Maybe she didn't understand.
I grew up in a neighborhood where that was used whenever somebody didn't want to actually say the word, I need money.
Got it.
It was synonymous with that.
Gotcha.
Well, I was, and I didn't, because there was a lot going on, so I didn't even ask, but I was like, okay, did she get a dick pic? And then she was like, okay, nah.
Yeah, I mean,
he thought that would have been enough to be like, okay, well, I threw it out there. You can have this wonderful experience for $500. She gave him the $500, saw the pic, and was like,
he said,
I need my money back.
He gave her 3 pumps. She said, I need more. I need 7 back right now.
I need at least 5 pumps. One for each $100.
I mean, y'all are hurting my heart.
I was thinking about it from the perspective of, I think about it from the perspective of, like, say he's he engages in sex work. To him, it's just sex work. Like, you want some of this, you pay for it, right?
Yeah.
In which case, I don't know what happened. I don't know what she held. But if she got sex from it, then you can't go get it.
No, respectfully, her money is gone. I mean, that would have been my response. I'd have been like, well, sweetheart, you gave it, right?
You learned an interesting lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your money's gone.
I still think that still definitely falls within fuckboy realm.
Oh, no.
Why do you think so?
One of the, I guess for me, the fact that there needs to be money exchanged for you to get my attention,
Right.
that's straight up usury.
Right.
But would you classify any sex work that involves feeding a person's need for attention? So, for instance, virtual girlfriends. Do you consider that to be immoral?
So I think that the context matters.
Okay.
All right. In this case, that's just, to me, that's straight up fuckboy thing, because she's coming him directly with that. It's not like he's a defined sex worker. He's got a site that says, I'm selling this.
Right.
This is her making a personal attempt to get with him and him saying, no, you're going to have to pay me. Right. That's not the same thing as sex work to me. Sex work is a very different thing. And those people are not in it for emotions with you. They're in it just to get the money. Period. Sure. And they're very upfront about it.
And there's no refunds.
Well, that's what you learned here.
Even deposits. Don't act like you don't have a risk.
Even with sex work, there's clear definitions of like no refunds. So she wouldn't even have the need to ask for any refund because she would have already known what the situation was.
Which is what goes back to my whole thought of a fuckboy or a fuck girl is a person that is deceitful, that's not being completely honest in that sense, right?
Yes.
Sex work is saying clearly like, hey, we are doing a barter system, right? You are giving me money for this ass.
Right.
And that's that.
Right.
Where in these situations, it's like, hey, you're giving me money to see a picture or whatever the case is, but I'm not letting you know that that's exactly what I'm getting from you. I'm also using up your time so I can feel better about myself. I'm not letting you know that that's what I'm doing. So it's just, it's a matter of just being upfront about, like how you said, the expectations.
I was just about to bring that back up because I feel like that is the bigger challenge is expectations.
Basically, I just want to know if she's mad about the fact that she's broken wants money now and he won't give it to her and hence is a fuckboy, or he tricked her based on what she expected.
So I'm still at the first situation. Him asking for money to me says he's a fuckboy. Instead of saying, hey, you like me? Let's go and talk to each other, right? No, before we can even talk.
I need this money. Right. My phone doesn't work, so I need you to pay this phone bill for me.
Well, I don't think she paid her phone bill. She gave him the money for the phone bill. No, she wasn't back.
Yeah, and I know we're laughing at this situation, but it is sad because I feel like when you asked earlier about, what's the harm, this is part of that, right? Because not everybody's needs get met in this situation because they think they may be getting met because they don't align on the expectations of what this means.
Right.
Yeah, no, I had a moment of clarity and I think I understand where you're coming from. It's the fact that she didn't approach him thinking this was going to be transactional. But her needs emotionally are so intense in that moment. She's willing to accept this transactional relationship. And I think you think he has and I agree actually, in the way I live my life at least. I live my life in this sense where in that situation, I believe that being able to recognize your vulnerability in this moment, I have a responsibility to not exploit it.
Yeah.
That's how I am. So I think I see where you're coming from.
And I think if he had said up front, this is the way I operate, this is how I do everybody, you're not special, give me the money, would have been different than just saying, if I'm gonna get attention from you or you get attention from me, then you're gonna have to pay me. I feel like there's more that he could have added to soften this because I feel like she just didn't have all the info she needed to make the right decision.
100%. Because I'm even sure that, and of course I'm drawing strings at this point, but I'm even sure that the conversation isn't continuing. Right. Which is why it's kind of like, I need to pull somebody else in to try to force him to give me this. Right. So it is that like.
Because at that point she was ghosted, which is why she was reaching out to.
Well, I think that if she involved more people, that would pressure him to maybe giving her some of the money back because he's not necessarily sure he wants other people to know how he operates. you know?
Yeah, but it depends. It depends.
I'm not saying it's going to work, but
Listen.
I'm thinking in her mind, she's probably thinking, well,
What I'm saying I don't know about is whether or not he wants people to know, because I know people like that. They don't mind people knowing.
right,
Because that is part of their mystique.
right.
What was really shocking for me was that he had the mentality that he think he was worthy of that.
Yeah.
Worthy of what?
500?
To be able to get that money for attention.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
That mystique. That mystique that I'm talking about, that's what I'm saying. He's playing on that.
Wait, what shocks you about that?
But she feeds the ego because she gave him the money.
Right.
So it's a win for him.
Yes, but did she give him the money with all the facts? Like, he could have sent her a picture and it may not have been his picture.
It doesn't
know?
even matter, because I'm going to flip it on you. You like
You
somebody.
didn't do your due diligence and
No,
investigate?
I'm not victim blaming in this sense, but like, let's be real. If you like somebody and you approach them and they're like, you got to give me money to talk to me, you could be like, all right, I see you when I see you, right? You're going to walk away.
Right.
At that point, you're like, check, I'm good here.
Or if it's a different situation, and in many ways this is very similar because it has to do with money. It's like, well, if you want to actually get to know me, you're going to have to take me out on a date.
Right.
You're going to have to spend money on me. There's a difference between saying you're going to have to give me money, though.
Yeah, no, it is. But even in the sense of that, slightly sidetracked, like, I've seen a ton of discussions of where, the big thing was where women were like, oh, if you take me on a date, don't take me to a coffee shop. And I'm like, why the hell not? On the first date, you're trying to get to know somebody. What I'm not going to do is take you into a space that's loud and crazy, and all you can see is that I can swipe my credit card, right? Because you don't know me. All you know is that at least for this one time, I had some money in my account. You don't know how I got it. I could have robbed somebody. This could have been somebody else's card, anything. But if we go to a space that, yes, I take you out, and we have the moment to enjoy, explore, continue to walk around and do other things and have more of a date, yeah.
I have come to the conclusion that this crew over here is far too evolved. I mean, we're over here talking about taking people out in places where we can actually talk to them.
We'll be right back after these messages.
What is it that these people are looking for? I mean, because it sounds to me they're just looking for a big dick.
Listen, so much has been attached to the black penis. Our values, our ideas around what it means to be more or less of a man, our fantasies, and as history shows, our fears.
When white people have a belief system that the role of a black person is to bring them pleasure, is to make them happy, is to fulfill whatever need or desire it is that they have. And that message gets passed down generation to generation.
Yes.
And it shows up in different contexts, but it's the same shit.
They castrated us. And the reason why they castrated us was because they were in fear of the big black penis.
We unpacked a lot in this episode. Press play, sit back, because it's a heavy load. Listen to Past the Black Penis, Season 3, Episode 2.
Someone asked me if I were actually wanting to engage in sexual activity, and I said no, which was a lie because I was horny. I just didn't want to have sex with that person.
Sometimes we lie because it's tradition.
But who wants to be, who
That's a good
honestly wants to be with a man who you don't respect enough to tell the truth?
Other times because the truth has denied us its permission, giving way to lies of omission.
There is a reason why I don't get on Zoom calls until they know me. I mean, in terms of like showing my face. That is that lie of omission. I need for them to respect me by my voice first before they say, oh, it's a black guy.
Because we won't dare compromise our position.
That is the lie that religiosity, not religion, religiosity has told people.
That's such BS.
Sometimes a lie is born of contrition for a truth that's a thorn. in our ambitions.
I've never in my old days used to be the type of person who wanted to be lied to. But this is one of those cases where lie to me.
Listen to episodes 10 and 11, season 3. Sometimes a lie and lie to me, as we unpack the many reasons why we lie. I probably lie most with lies of omission. And I don't feel bad about it. Since podcast apps are up to tricks, subscribe directly with us at thepoetgod.com. Because these these apps ain't loyal. So subscribe with us at thepoetgod.com and put these notification problems in the soil.
If you genuinely want to get to know somebody, truthfully, your first few dates are the best time to get to know somebody. So you don't need to, I think being like, hey, let's only go out at night and let's go out to dinner at this super loud restaurant. All I figured out is you like this food. Great. What am I going to take home with that? Like nothing. There's no information to gather from that. But if I can take you out early, we go and get coffee, and now we're done with coffee at 3:00, and you want to go for a walk? Let's
but
walk.
I see that as just another tactic of a fuckboy who realizes that people will recognize, oh, if I keep calling her after midnight, then she's going to realize what I am. So I'm going to switch it up and send a good morning text and then not talk to her that entire day. You know what I mean? And then talking about, oh, can we have coffee the next day? You know what I mean? Keeping them on their toes, with not true intimacy, but just juggling, most people recognize the signs. We recognize stereotypical signs oh, if he's calling you like that, or if he hasn't done this, or if he hasn't done that, then he's a player, a fuckboy, whatever. I think that in order to be a fuckboy, you have to evolve and recognize that people recognize these signs. So I got to do the opposite of that and be sinister. You know what I mean? And be sinister, because let's be real. Not walking around a nice guy just being like, I just like to have sex. No.
I have a question, because thinking about this again, you said if he had said, oh, you have to wine and dine me, it wouldn't be being a fuckboy. I'm getting a different message from you, where you think that's of a similar mold. I guess I'm trying to figure out what the difference would be between saying, give me money, give me cash, versus take me to an expensive restaurant and wine and dine me.
So the wine and dine thing, you don't even have to go to an expensive restaurant, because it becomes a date where you actually have to exchange, right? You're there. It is not a transactional thing where you just give me money and that's it. But if you take somebody out, their expectation is you're going to talk to each other. You're going to actually connect, as opposed to just it being transactional.
What if I tell you, give me $500 and we can go on a coffee date?
No, that's not. That's
no, because that's what he could have been.
That's where are we going for coffee?
Really?
No. What I'm saying is, give me $500 cash, and you win the chance to take me on a coffee date.
What is this, a raffle?
I mean, from that, I feel like
that young lady did not win the raffle. Yeah, that number did not get called.
But I think you're making a good point, because I feel like there's a lot of relationships that are transactional, right? Yeah. But what I guess the point I'm trying to make is that shouldn't be the way that you connect to start off with, right? Because I feel like you send a message immediately that there's nothing really between us, except because if you take the money away, you're taking away whatever is connected to us.
Well, I agree with you.
But some people are just going to be transactional anyway. That's how they were taught to recognize love, through gifts and for sure, you know what I mean? So for them, they're thinking you're thinking, oh, one of these, I got to spend money, just to open up to you. But they're thinking well, how do I know that you care if you don't spend money? It's just the way they were raised.
I know, but I still run from them because I can't do that the rest of my life.
100%.
I just like, I give gifts and stuff, but I can't, the expectation that I don't love you because I'm not giving you, I can't do that.
Right.
I can't do it.
Right.
Because one day I'm going to be broke and old.
Yeah.
And
if you don't know me by now.
that's hilarious.
But I think that guy, he probably feels like I'm better because I'm not asking for money. I'm better than that. I'm only asking for your emotional.
That's the nice guy in him.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
I think in his mind, if he sees the money as a tool of power, so that's why he's not asking for money.
Yeah.
You know, he would be like, if I ask for money, then I'm, nothing more than a paycheck or whatever.
But it goes against his resume, because his resume is that I make decent money.
Yes, exactly.
The funny part about that, though, is that so the person who shared, I'm going back to the guy who asked the woman for $500. In this story, when the person who was sharing the text with me, she confronted him as a favor to the other person. And he said, well, so he told her first of all it was none of her business. And then,
that's to be expected.
And then
respectfully.
And then he said to her that I didn't even need it. I didn't need the money. Yeah. But, I told her, let me hold something. And so,
like what he said, sinister.
Yeah.
Like you didn't need to use somebody like that. That was a lot of money to her. And he knew that.
But it was to see to the depths of what you would be willing to do. Because if there is a continuation of things, I can keep pushing this line.
Yes.
But you're going back to saying he's doing this to her. She still had the choice to say no.
You're right.
And move on.
But I believe that she is not being truthful about what she was expecting for that money. Because she, he clearly is of the mindset like, she knew what it was. Ask me this, give me this money and you get this. But she, in her mind, is thinking, no, whatever it was I was expecting to get for $500, I didn't get it.
Could it also be that he read her, can look at her and see she has a little self-esteem. I can get what I want out of her.
What you say about picking your victims?
Yeah. 100%. That's exactly what it is. He looked and was like, got him. And sometimes it is a matter of, you put a bait out there, and he may have continued to speak to her had she not given him that money. But once he got that, he was like, I know exactly where you are. Cool. If we're going to move forward, I can choose to keep pushing for this or whatever the case is, but I know exactly where you are because I've tested you and this is how you've happened to take this test.
Yeah,
next time is going to be.
Let's be like, maybe she didn't get like the full $500. Maybe he got $500 over time because she kept giving him that much. Like, oh, she gave him $200.
I'm sure he asked her on a check day. Oh, I'm sure he asked her.
Yeah,
just cold.
Yeah, that is cold.
No,
that goes back to the point where you're saying. So these are the women who would pay his cell phone bill, pay his rent, pay his car bill,
right?
And he's fine. Continue talking, do whatever he wants with her because he's getting, as you talk about with your uncles in the situation.
Yeah, and with them, the thing that I think was even worse is watching multiple women fight over them because he did it to several. They all assumed they had some ownership of him, and he was out there with like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
All doing the same thing.
But that's the thing. So I'm going to call it a barter system, right? Because it is transactional at this point. But in that barter system, they would have been fine if he was just with them. They were okay with spending that sort of money.
Yeah. And I think you're right, but I feel like the expectation there was that he was theirs.
100%.
Right. They were going to build a family together, all that other stuff. I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm sure.
But I feel like what really the reality was, he had certain needs that he got from this one, certain needs he got from that one, and he was doing his part to get all of his needs met.
100%.
And he was paying for it too, I guess, because they all seem to be fighting over him. So I'm like, no, what's happening over here? So,
I'm just wondering. I mean, like, if he had a price where he would have been monogamous, or if it was just like the fun part of just being able to manipulate people into getting that money. Like, is there a price where he would have been like, well,
I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking back and just because I do know them, I think part of it was the fact that they could actually have that, they could brag that they got 3 or 4 of them, right? I don't think there was any chance at any moment that
anyone could have bought.
Right. But I do also feel like, besides the bragging rights, I do feel like it's much what we were talking about earlier is like, well, one doesn't want to give it to me, I can go to the next. When one kicked him out, he would go to the next. But he actually still got a rotation because the first one would always let him back in. Just not today.
I think it is a matter of whatever this person's perception of their needs are in that moment, right? And it's getting it. So I don't think in certain cases it's a set dollar amount or it's a set number of sex a time a day or anything like that. They're kind of like how you brought it before, like there is always going to be more that you want, and they aren't at a space to just be comfortable with where they are at.
Well, I think it's part of like the transactional thing. Like if somebody told you like, I want to have sex with you, and they're like, well, I need my rent paid, So you're like, okay, here's the money for your rent. I gave you the money for your rent. You're assuming that their rent's paid. But what they're also telling the next person is, I need money for rent. And so you get pissed off because you're thinking, well, I did what you wanted. I gave you the money, but here you are asking 12 other people for rent money.
Somebody told me you don't get your ass wet for nothing. I have a question.
Yeah.
It's funny because this situation and
you'll make me scream.
Nah, that's a funny part. So this conversation and trying to figure out whether the guy was wrong or right or justified reminded me of a conversation I had with someone in college who some might term a fuckboy, and he said basically, why do we discount the agency of the other party in this situation? Right? You consented. I didn't lie to you. I told you exactly what it was. You acquiesced to it, and then you're crying about the end result. Right. And so the question I have is, how do you judge these matters when do you consider the agency of the person who got the wrong end of the stick, I guess, in this situation, and who responsibility they hold?
I think that there are multiple things. And even in the episode, there was a soundbite that talked about women loving to fix something. Right. So there are a lot of women that if you dangle a piece of change, she could be like, oh, I could change that. And is going to run and try their darndest trying to make that change. Like, oh, he'll change because of me. Right?
Yes.
And that's really what it is. Like,
but with maturity comes a point where you're just like, well, if it's broke, I am fixing it.
Yeah. But you have a ton of people that don't necessarily get to that point yet. And they will be like, but he's done this all this time. He's going to change for me. Like, all right, enjoy. So
enjoy.
So yes, I do agree that there is a piece of saying like, but you did see these signs. But it's also a thing of not discounting that person for doing the wrong that they've done, because they themselves knew it was wrong. It's like saying to somebody, I'll give a different example. It's like if you worked at a convenience store and you saw somebody that looks suspicious, right? But you're like, I don't want to judge them just based on their looks. And then they actually rob you. Mm-hmm. You'd be pissed off if somebody came like, he didn't look like he was going to rob you. Right. So you don't want to just put it on them. There was still somebody that did the action that was bad.
Because I'm trying to say, like, he's like, well, I'm not monogamous. And she may take that to be like, oh, okay. it's not just me. But she's not taking that to mean it's me and 12 other people. You know what I mean? It's me and 7 regulars and whoever I may pull on a Friday. You know what I mean? So it's like, be for real. You're not being completely honest when you say you have 8 people and 8 people are down for an arrangement of being one of 8. You know? No.
Well, I feel like his list of 8 aren't even sure that there's 7 others. Honest to God, I don't think that his 8 know, because the way that he expressed it, he was like, sometimes is be like, I'm not that bad of a person. Those 8 people don't know about each other.
Right. Hold on, too. Along those same lines, he did talk about being in a restaurant when one of them come in and they give each other the side eye, like, I see you.
Right, I saw you. I saw what you're doing here.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it goes south is when the feelings get involved. You know, or you're not spending enough time with me, or by chance someone catches you with someone else out in public. Like, how do how are you going to handle that?
Have you had to handle that?
I've never had, knock on wood, I've never had an incident where it blew up like that, but I've had where it was looks staring like, okay, I see you. Like, okay, I see you too. And that's it.
And they're seeing you with somebody else.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Oh.
So, we're all adults. Nobody's trying to blow up each other's spot, So you gotta maneuver. You gotta maneuver. It's how it is.
I would say that is a situation like, no, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I think you listen to the episode that say sometimes a lie is the best thing.
I think that's in season 3 as well.
Lying by omission, though. He's definitely lying by omission.
So let me step back and say there is lying by omission when somebody doesn't ask. But there is plain lying when there is a question that has been asked to you and you divert from that question. And I am sure, I'm not telling you that each and every one of these women, but I'm sure he has gotten multiple questions that would have allowed them to have more insight into what he was doing.
Right.
And he purposely chose not to answer those questions.
Yes.
With the setup you talked about
but
earlier.
But he justifies it in the fact like she should have figured it out.
Yeah. But that whole thing you said about him setting up, I'm busy on these days or whatever.
Right.
That's part of that line. Because instead of saying, I was actually out with somebody else, they're like, no, I was working.
In his mind, he's saying it proudly like, I'm a fuckboy, like in the sense of like, I can pull all these women. But what you're not saying is that you're deceiving a bunch of women in order to get sex.
Correct.
It sounds terrible when you say it like that I'm just lying by omission to a bunch of women so I can have sex with them.
He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. It doesn't sound great when you say I have to lie to get sex. Right. It sounds great where you can like, I'm so charming. I, convince them to have sex with me.
I gave them what they wanted.
Yeah, but if they actually gave you what you wanted night 1, you wouldn't respect them. If they were like, yeah, let's do this. And you'd be like, well, damn, that didn't take any effort.
Because it doesn't, but you have to understand the reason why that doesn't work is because it doesn't stroke his ego. Because night 1, you don't know me.
Right.
So you haven't really, in his mind, you haven't figured out what you like enough about me to give this to me.
Right.
So on night 1, if you do it, you're doing this to anybody. So I'm not special.
Right.
But if it's night 10, I feel special because you spent time messaging me. You spent time trying to go out and see me.
Right.
It means that you like me. So it is stroking my ego. And that's really where the problem is, why it doesn't work night 1. But the reason why it can't go past 14 is you must not like me enough if you're not willing to give it to me at this point in time.
Right.
You had enough time
to realize that I'm special.
That I'm this catch. So you should be giving it up to me. That's really what that concept is.
It's a very fine line because it all depends on when he feels special.
Right.
Yeah.
I was wanting to go back to a second to people who look past the red flags because they think that I'm going to be the one that changes them. I wonder if if that's tied into
their idea of what love is. So the way I'm thinking about that is that you love me so much, or I love you so much that I'm going to change for you. I was a piece of shit before, but for you.
Some people have learned through their own personal experiences that love is chaotic. Love is a circus. Love is drama. Love is like, oh, you got red flags? I'm a matador. Olay. You know what I mean?
No, but it's facts. And the truth of the matter is think of all of these things that we hear stories about love. Love is, girl, he loves you. He used to cheat on all his other girlfriends and he'll cheat on you. Like, is that the standard? We are, as a society, we are exposed to love being extremely shitty,
toxic,
100%, and
patriarchal.
And that toxicity of it is you need to go through that, because once you break through that and you see the light, now you know that they love you.
That's some bullshit. I'm sorry. I've lived through that, because in my 20s, I was exactly that guy.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, it's bullshit.
What do you mean in terms of like they had
bought
to
a house
prove?
for somebody when I was 27.
Well, that's because
we doing the wrong thing here.
You felt like I needed to earn love. I needed to
Not
earn it.
only earn love, but that whole thing about I can fix you, I can change you, I can make you, I can upgrade you, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And that does not guarantee love. And it's not about love at all. It really wasn't.
It was about you proving that you could get it.
It's a little deeper than that. It's a little bit layered, but it definitely was not about love. Love is about really that connection and what you feel towards somebody. But in the world that I grew up in, I mean, many men have this where you grew up and you were told that you have to be the protector. You got to be the one who supplies everything for everybody. I bought into that big time. The problem was I wasn't getting reciprocation for that. Instead, it was only what I put in that made our relationship. Everything else be damned. If I wasn't putting in, we didn't have a relationship.
I have a thing that sometimes for some people when they're dating, just starting out, I think sometimes people, I have this thing about being a chameleon. They'll be what you're telling the expectation of what that person's going to be. So they'll pretend to be that person to get what they want from you, love or whatever they want to call it, in that initial chameleon role. So that's one of my things I feel that some people do go that way and pretend.
And they can pretend for like over a year.
Correct.
They can pretend to get a certain level or whatever they want. And then at some point, then they feel comfortable. They're like, well, I can stop pretending. And then that person starts to look at them like, what the hell am I dealing with?
Or you have an argument and you see the real person. Oh, okay. So now I see. You were just pretending all this
whole time.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're pulling women, men, whoever, being yourself, and people still gravitate towards you, hey, have at it. That's that magnetic thing that you have that allows you to be this player. But if you're lying and deceiving and coming up with systems and rules for them so that they don't get too close, then you're not like being a player. You're not being like a lover boy, Lothario, whatever you think you are. You know, you're just being dishonest. You're trickery. Some people pay for ass, some people trick for ass.
Right, but that's even part of the thing. Like, I wonder, like, what is this honor of being a fuckboy and having to do all of this work for it? Like, is your thing to say, like, oh, I've had sex with this many women. Like, and if that's the case, then maybe you're on the bottom of the totem pole, because there are other people that have had sex with X amount of women that didn't have to do all the shit you did just to get there. Right.
I was wondering how much of it is a community thing, right? Because I think I'd asked him a question about what's your community of fuckboys like? Or do you guys trade stories?
Right.
Support each other.
How can they support each other? You know you can't trust any single one of them.
But he said that too. He goes, some of them may be upset that you got somebody that they were trying to get.
Yeah. Right. This is FuckBoy Anonymous, where we talk about the fuck around on the fuck around.
You've made it to the end. I think you found your show, and with that, a community that will take you to places few others will go. What you discovered, what many others will know, is that the Poet God podcast is the very exemplification of artistry in audio.